I left my wife and best friend to start a new life after I found out they were secretly planning to divorce me and take everything I've built. 2 years later, my entire family started calling when they learned what really happened. My name is Adam, and I never imagined I'd be the guy writing one of these posts. For most of my life, I was the reliable one, the foundation everyone in my family leaned on. I had what I thought was a rock-solid marriage to my college sweetheart, Melissa, a successful construction business I built from scratch, and a tight-knit family that I would have done anything for. But sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones who can hurt you the deepest. I'm 35 now, but this all started unraveling when I was 33. Melissa and I had been married for 8 years. We met in college, dated for 3 years, and got married in a beautiful ceremony that our families helped put together. Everyone said we were perfect for each other. She was smart, ambitious, and supportive, at least that's what I thought. My best friend since high school, Ryan, was always around. He was the best man at our wedding, a fixture at our family gatherings, and the guy I talked to about everything. When he went through a rough patch 4 years ago, lost his job, went through a bad breakup, and was about to lose his apartment, I didn't hesitate to help him out. I loaned him money, let him stay in our guest house for a few months, which turned into almost 2 years, and eventually helped him get a job at my construction company. I thought I was just being a good friend, a good husband, a good person. Looking back, I was being a good fool. The day I discovered the truth started like any other Tuesday. I was heading out of town for a big client meeting in Denver, a potential contract that could expand my business into a new state. Before leaving, I realized I'd forgotten some documents on my home office computer. Melissa was at work, or so I thought, and I had a few hours before my flight, so I headed back to the house to grab them. The moment I pulled into our driveway, I knew something was off. Melissa's car was there. She should have been at the law firm where she worked as a paralegal. Ryan's truck was parked on the street too. My first thought, naively, was that maybe she was feeling sick and Ryan had stopped by to check on her or drop something off. I walked in quietly through the garage door. I didn't try to be silent, I just wasn't announcing myself either. I heard their voices coming from our home office, the door slightly ajar. I was about to call out when I caught a fragment of their conversation that made my blood run cold. "He'll never see it coming," Ryan said, his voice casual like he was discussing the weather. "The idiot trusts me completely." I froze in the hallway, my hand gripping the strap of my laptop bag so tightly my knuckles turned white. "I know," Melissa replied with a laugh that sounded nothing like the woman I'd married. "Adam's always been too trusting for his own good. That's why this is going to work perfectly." I stood there, my heart hammering in my chest, as they continued talking, every word feeling like a knife twisting deeper into my gut. "So the lawyer says timing is everything," Melissa continued. "I need to file right after he closes that Denver deal. That way it's considered marital property, and I'm entitled to half." "Smart," Ryan remarked. "And what about the company? How much of that can you get?" "Since it was started during our marriage, I can claim it as a marital asset too. The lawyer thinks I can get at least 40%, maybe more if we can prove I contributed in other ways. And I've already started documenting how I helped with client meetings and company events." I felt sick. The room seemed to be spinning around me. "And the house? The accounts?" Ryan asked. "I've already moved some money to my personal account," Melissa said casually. "Not enough that he'd notice, but enough to give us a cushion. As for the house, we'll sell it and split the proceeds. Or maybe I'll just keep it. Depends on how ugly he wants to make this." "He won't make it ugly," Ryan laughed. "Adam will roll over like he always does. The guy hates confrontation." "True," Melissa agreed. "And the best part is, he has no idea you and I have been together for almost 2 years now." 2 years. The words hit me like a physical blow. 2 years of betrayal, right under my nose. While I was working 60-hour weeks to build our future, they were planning how to destroy it, and me. "Once everything's finalized," Ryan continued, "I'll officially take over as partner in the business. With your share in my position, we'll effectively control everything he's built." Melissa laughed again. "And he made it so easy by bringing you in, giving you access to all the clients. They already know you. The transition will be seamless." I must have made a noise, because suddenly they went quiet. Then the office door swung open, and there they were, my wife and my best friend, staring at me with matching expressions of shock. "Adam," Melissa said, recovering quickly, her face shifting into a concerned expression that I now recognized as completely fake. "I thought you were on your way to Denver?" I looked between them, these two people I had loved and trusted more than anyone in the world. I felt something inside me break, then immediately harden. "I forgot some files," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. But I found something much more interesting, didn't I? Ryan stepped forward, palms up in a placating gesture. Buddy, this isn't what it looks like. Don't, I cut him off. I heard everything. The divorce plans. The company. The money you've been stealing, I said, looking at Melissa. The 2-year affair. All of it. Melissa's face transformed again, the fake concern replaced by cold calculation. It was like watching a mask slip, revealing the stranger beneath. Well, she said flatly. This complicates things. No denial. No apology. No shame. Just irritation at being caught before they were ready. Adam, she continued, her voice taking on that lawyer coach tone she used when she wanted something. We were going to talk to you about this. We just wanted to have all our ducks in a row first. I bet you did, I replied. Look, man, Ryan chimed in. This doesn't have to get ugly. We can all be adults about this. I laughed then, a hollow sound that didn't contain a trace of humor. Adults? You're sleeping with my wife, plotting to take my company, and you want to talk about being adults? It's my company too, Melissa snapped, dropping the pretense entirely. I've been by your side the whole time you built it. I'm entitled to my share. You're a paralegal at a law firm, I reminded her. You've never drawn a paycheck from my company, never worked on a single project, never even shown up for most client meetings. I supported you, she insisted. I was there when you were getting it off the ground. And now you want to put it in the ground, I said. With Ryan's help. Ryan at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. Business is business, Adam. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal? I echoed in disbelief. You're sleeping with my wife and planning to take over my company, and it's nothing personal? They exchanged a look that said volumes. They weren't sorry. They were just sorry they got caught. I took a deep breath. The meeting in Denver suddenly seemed meaninglessly small compared to the collapse of my entire life. I need to get out of here. I have a plane to catch. Adam, wait, Melissa started, but I was already walking away. We need to talk about this. I turned at the door. Talk all you want. I've heard enough. Don't do anything stupid, she called after me, her voice hard. Remember, I know good lawyers. I looked at her one last time, this woman I thought I knew. So do I. I got in my car and drove away, not to the airport, but just away. I needed space to think, to breathe, to process the nuclear bomb that had just detonated in my life. I ended up at a hotel near the airport, sitting on the edge of the bed in a daze, my mind racing through everything I'd just learned. The Denver meeting came and went. I called and rescheduled, claiming a family emergency. Technically, it wasn't a lie. My life as I knew it was over. I had decisions to make, and I couldn't do it while trying to pitch a new client. I called the one person I knew I could trust, my sister Emily. She lived a few hours away and had never particularly warmed to Melissa, something I'd always chalked up to normal sister-in-law tension. Turned out her instincts were better than mine. Adam? She answered, concern in her voice. I never called during work hours. Is everything okay? No, I said simply. Everything is very much not okay. I told her everything, my voice breaking only once during the retelling. When I finished, the line was silent for a long moment. I'm going to kill her, Emily finally said, with such calm conviction that I almost believed she might actually do it. And then I'm going to kill Ryan. Get in line, I replied, a ghost of a smile crossing my face for the first time since the revelation. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know yet, I admitted. But I know what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to let them take everything I've worked for. Come here, Emily said immediately. Stay with us while you figure it out. Don, Dave and the kids would love to see you. I hesitated. I don't want to bring this mess to your doorstep. You're not bringing anything. I'm dragging you here myself if I have to, she insisted. Family sticks together, Adam. Real family. Real family. The words hit harder than I expected. Melissa had been my family, or so I thought. Ryan had been like a brother to me. Now it turned out neither of them had ever really been on my side. Okay, I agreed. I'll drive up tomorrow. Tonight, she corrected. Start driving now. Don't go back to that house. She was right. There was nothing for me there anymore. Emily? I said before hanging up. Thank you. Don't thank me, she replied. Just get here safe. And Adam? This isn't the end. It's just a really terrible chapter. I hung up and sat there for a few more minutes, my mind clearing for the first time since I'd overheard that conversation. Emily was right about one thing: I shouldn't go back to the house tonight. But there were things I needed to do before I left town. First, I called my attorney, Gerald, an old friend from college who had helped me set up my business. I got his voicemail and left a message asking him to call me back as soon as possible. Next, I called my foreman, Miguel, a loyal employee who had been with me since I started the company. I trusted him more than anyone else at work. "Boss?" he answered. "Thought you were in Denver." "Change of plans," I said. "Miguel, I need a favor, and it's a big one." "Name it," he replied without hesitation. "I need you to quietly change the codes on the warehouse, update the passwords on our system, and move any important documents to a secure location. Don't tell anyone, especially Ryan." There was a pause. "Something happening I should know about, boss?" "Ryan and I are having a difference of opinion about the company's future," I said, not wanting to air all my dirty laundry. "I need to make sure things are secure until it's resolved." Miguel didn't ask for details. That's what I always appreciated about him. "Consider it done. Anything else? Keep an eye on things and call me if Ryan does anything unusual. I'll be out of town for a few days." "Got it. Take care of yourself, Adam." I hung up feeling marginally better. At least the business would be secure for now. My phone buzzed with texts from Melissa. I ignored them. Then it started ringing. "Ryan." I declined the call. They were probably panicking now, realizing their carefully laid plans were falling apart. "Good." Gerald called back just as I was checking out of the hotel. "Adam, got your message. Sounds urgent?" "The most urgent," I confirmed, and gave him a streamlined version of events. He whistled low. "Well, that's about as bad as it gets. I'm sorry, man." "Thanks. What do I do here, legally speaking?" "First, don't leave town," he advised. "Too late. I'm on my way to my sister's." "Well, come back soon." Leaving could be construed as abandonment in some cases. "Also, document everything. Forward any incriminating texts or emails to me. And for God's sake, don't touch any joint accounts yet." "Melissa already started moving money," I pointed out. "Then we document that too. Two wrongs don't make a right in court. You need to look like the reasonable one here." I agreed to meet him in his office in 3 days, after I'd had some time to clear my head at Emily's. As I started the long drive to her house, my phone kept lighting up with calls and texts from both Melissa and Ryan. I finally turned it off completely. Whatever they had to say could wait. The drive to Emily's took 4 hours, giving me plenty of time to think. By the time I pulled into her driveway, it was past midnight. She was waiting on the porch anyway, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders against the autumn chill. She didn't say anything, just wrapped me in a hug so tight it almost hurt. I hugged her back, fighting the burning behind my eyes. "The guest room's all set up," she said, leading me inside. "Dave's already asleep, but he made up a plate for you in case you're hungry." I wasn't, but I appreciated the gesture. My brother-in-law had always been good people. "The kids?" I asked. "Both asleep. They're excited to see Uncle Adam in the morning, though. I told them you're on a little vacation." I nodded, grateful she hadn't shared the real reason for my visit. My niece and nephew, 8 and 6 years old, didn't need to know their aunt was a cheating backstabber. "Get some sleep," Emily said, squeezing my arm. "Things will look, well, still terrible, but clearer in the morning." She was right again. When I woke up the next day, I had a plan. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, negotiations, and difficult conversations. I returned home 3 days later, but not to my house. I rented a small apartment near my office and threw myself into work, focusing on what I could control. The first thing Gerald and I did was secure the business. Since I had founded it before marriage and maintained it as a separate legal entity, Melissa's claims were weaker than she'd been led to believe. Ryan was easier to deal with. I simply fired him. He threatened to sue, but Gerald reminded him that his employment contract had several clauses about loyalty and conflicts of interest that he had clearly violated. He backed down quickly after that. The house was trickier. We had bought it together during our marriage, so it was undeniably marital property. In the end, I let Melissa have it in exchange for her dropping her claims on my business. It was worth it to me. The house held too many tainted memories now anyway. The divorce proceedings were ugly, but not in the way either Melissa or Ryan had anticipated. Instead of rolling over, I fought for what was mine. The evidence of their affair, combined with the documented conversations about their plans to take my company, didn't play well for Melissa. Her lawyer's face when we presented the recorded conversation, captured inadvertently by my smartphone's voice recorder app that I'd been using for work notes, was almost worth the heartache. Almost. But the worst part wasn't the legal battles. It was the smear campaign they started when they realized things weren't going their way. Melissa reached out to my parents, my cousins, our mutual friends, anyone who would listen, claiming I had been verbally abusive, that I had abandoned her, that I was trying to leave her with nothing. Ryan backed up her stories, adding his own embellishments about how I had mistreated him at work. People I had known and loved my entire life started looking at me differently. My mother called, asking hesitantly if there was any truth to what Melissa was saying. My father, always quick to judge, told me I needed to man up and take care of my wife, regardless of what had happened. Cousins took sides. Friends drifted away, uncomfortable with the drama. Only Emily, Dave, and a handful of loyal friends stood firmly in my corner. It was a painful lesson in who would stand by you when things got tough. 6 months after that fateful day, the divorce was finalized. Melissa got the house and a cash settlement that was far less than she'd been hoping for. I kept my company intact. Ryan was out of both our lives, having moved to another state when the dust settled. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The real fallout came a year later, when Melissa's true nature began showing itself to the people who had believed her lies about me. She dated a series of increasingly unsuitable men, ran through her settlement money, and eventually had to sell the house when she couldn't keep up with the mortgage payments. Ryan, it turned out, had moved on to another target, a wealthy widow he'd met at his new job, leaving Melissa to face the consequences alone. My parents were the first to call. They had run into Melissa at a restaurant with a man they recognized as a known troublemaker from our hometown. She was clearly drunk, making a scene, and when my mother asked if she was okay, Melissa had laughed and said, "Adam was right about everything. I really screwed up the best thing I ever had." "Son," my father said when I answered the phone, his voice uncharacteristically humble. "I think we owe you an apology." It was too little, too late, but I accepted it anyway. Family is complicated. My cousins followed, then mutual friends, all with similar stories of encounters with a Melissa they didn't recognize, bitter, reckless, and increasingly desperate. Each conversation included some variation of "we should have believed you" or "we had no idea what really happened." I was polite but distant. The wounds were still raw, and their quick willingness to believe the worst of me had left scars that wouldn't easily heal. The call that really shook me came 18 months after the divorce. It was Ryan, his voice slurred and emotional. "Adam," he said when I answered. "Man, I'm so sorry." I almost hung up. "You're drunk, Ryan." "Yeah," he admitted. "But I'm still sorry. We really screwed you over. You were nothing but good to me, and I repaid you by trying to take everything." "Why are you calling me?" I asked, unmoved by his belated remorse. "She left me," he said with a bitter laugh. "Melissa. She left me for some rich doctor 6 months after we moved in together. Karma, right?" I felt nothing, not satisfaction, not anger, not even pity. Just emptiness. "What do you want from me, Ryan? Forgiveness? Sympathy? I don't know, man. I guess. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. About her, about me. We didn't deserve you." "No," I agreed. "You didn't." I hung up, blocked his number, and went about my day. His call affected me less than I would have expected. I was building a new life now, one that didn't include either of them. My company had not only survived but thrived. Without the distractions of my imploding personal life, I had thrown myself into work with a focus that surprised even me. We had expanded into 3 new states, doubled our workforce, and landed contracts that had previously seemed out of reach. I had also started dating again, cautiously. Her name was Julia, and she was nothing like Melissa, warm, straightforward, and fiercely independent. We had met at a charity event Emily had dragged me to, and after months of friendship, had slowly transitioned into something more. I was taking it day by day, still learning to trust again. 2 years to the day after I discovered Melissa and Ryan's betrayal, my phone rang with a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello? Adam." It was Melissa's voice, smaller and more hesitant than I remembered. "Please don't hang up." "What do you want?" I asked, surprised by how calm I felt hearing her voice again. I need help," she admitted. "I've made a mess of everything. I lost my job, I can't make rent, and I don't know what to do." Once, those words would have had me rushing to her rescue. Now, they barely registered. "That sounds difficult," I said neutrally. But it's not my problem anymore. Adam, please, she said, her voice cracking. I know I don't deserve your help after what I did, but I have nowhere else to turn. Everyone else has given up on me. Like you gave up on our marriage? I asked. Like you gave up on basic human decency when you plotted with my best friend to take everything I had built? She was crying now. I was stupid and selfish and greedy. I know that. I've had 2 years to think about how badly I screwed up. You have every right to hate me. I don't hate you, Melissa, I said, realizing as I spoke that it was true. I don't feel anything for you at all anymore. The silence stretched between us. I'm sorry, she finally said. For everything. You didn't deserve any of it. No, I agreed. I didn't. But in a strange way, I'm grateful it happened. I'm happier now than I ever was, even when I thought our marriage was solid. Another pause. I'm glad, she said, and to her credit, it sounded genuine. I just wish I hadn't hurt you to get you there. Me too, I said. Goodbye, Melissa. I hung up before she could respond. There was nothing left to say. That night, as I sat on the patio of my new house, smaller than the one I'd shared with Melissa, but entirely mine, I reflected on how completely my life had changed in 2 years. I had lost a wife, a best friend, and the trust of many family members. But I had also gained clarity, true friends, a stronger business, and a better understanding of my own worth. Julia came outside, handed me a beer, and sat beside me, her presence comfortable and undemanding. Penny for your thoughts, she said. I smiled at her. Just thinking about how sometimes the worst day of your life can eventually lead you to the best ones. She raised an eyebrow. That's surprisingly optimistic coming from you. I'm evolving, I joked, then grew serious. Melissa called today. Julia straightened, instantly alert. What did she want? Money, I think. Help. She's hit rock bottom. And nothing, I said with a shrug. That chapter's closed. Julia studied me for a moment. Are you okay? I thought about it, really thought about it, and nodded. Yeah. I actually am. For the first time in a long time, I feel free. She smiled and took my hand. Freedom looks good on you. As we sat there watching the sunset, I realized that while betrayal had nearly destroyed me, it had also forced me to rebuild myself stronger than before. The wife who had plotted against me, the friend who had betrayed me, the family members who had doubted me, none of them defined me anymore. I had defined myself. Through resilience, through honesty, through the hard work of starting over when it seemed impossible. And while I wouldn't wish that painful journey on anyone, I couldn't deny the man I'd become because of it. Sometimes the deepest betrayals lead to the most profound transformations. Mine had cost me dearly, but in the end, I had gained something priceless, the knowledge that I was stronger than anything life could throw at me, and the certainty that I would never again settle for people who didn't value what I brought to the table. As Julia leaned her head on my shoulder, I made a silent promise to myself, to honor this hard-won wisdom by living authentically from now on, surrounded only by those who had earned my trust. The rest could stay in the past, where they belonged. Life wasn't perfect. There were still days when the betrayal stung, still awkward family gatherings where old tensions simmered beneath the surface. But those moments no longer defined me. I had taken back my story, rewritten the ending, and found my way to a peace I never thought possible in those dark days after discovery. And really, what more could anyone ask for than that?